Welcome back everyone. So in this class, let us discuss about the FindS algorithm, which is a very basic algorithm in the machine learning. So find S, that S stands for specific. So the aim of this FindS algorithm is finding a maximally specific algorithm, a specific hypothesis. So the algorithm proceeds like this. It will begin with the most specific hypothesis in the hypothesis space. Capital H stands for the hypothesis space. And then generalize this hypothesis each time it fails to cover. So that means whenever it is unable to classify correctly, so then we try to generalize that particular hypothesis. So we will begin with the most specific hypothesis and we go on generalizing as more and more examples are failed to classify correctly. So let us do this with an example. So we will initialize the hypothesis H to the most specific hypothesis. So that means the most specific hypothesis, the most specific value is a 5. So let us do this for this example. Data set is the Enjoy Sport data set. So here if you observe, you have a total of 6 attributes: sky, air temperature, humidity, wind, water and forecast. And each attribute is taking on various values. If you see sky, it is taking on 2 different values here, sunny and rainy. Air temperature is taking 2 different values, warm and cold. Humidity is taking values, normal and high. Wind is taking all strong only. Warm is taking 2 possible values, warm and cool. Forecast is taking 2 values, same and change. Then the target label, that is the Enjoy score. Okay. So this is either classified as yes or it is labeled as no. So now we will consider this example in order to solve this FindS algorithm. So what we have to do, we have to initialize the hypothesis H to the most specific hypothesis. Let us do this. So let us write H as, whenever we are writing hypothesis, we will consider only the attributes, but we will not take the target attribute. Other than the target attribute, we have a total of 6 attributes. The serial number and the target value you can just skip over. So the remaining only we will consider. So with this, we will construct the hypothesis, the most specific hypothesis. Most specific value is a 5. So initially, we do it with 6 5s as we have 6 attributes. Then in the second step, for each positive training example, okay. So here if you see, the target label is there with yes value as well as with no value. So now we should know the difference between a positive training example and negative training example. So all those with the value S are labeled as positive training example. First one is a positive one, second one is positive, fourth one is positive. The third one is a negative example, because the answer is no. So now for each positive training example, what we have to do, for each attribute constraint AI in the hypothesis H, if the constraint AI is satisfied by X, that is the example. Okay. So initially this entire thing is X. Now example by example when we proceed, this is X1, X2, X3 and X4. So first let us start with the first example. So okay, let us take this X1. So in this, these are the attribute constraints: sunny, warm, normal, strong, warm and same. So these are the attribute values under this instance. So now we will always compare with the initial hypothesis that we have. So what was the initial hypothesis we had? It is all 5s, right? Our initial hypothesis, let me name it as H0. It is a set of 6 5 values. Six attributes I have. So six attributes, I named it very specifically with the 5. So now the first example we are considering. So let us name it as H1. And now, so here the attribute value, if you check, it is 5. But what I have here, Sunny. If the constraint AI is satisfied by X, is it satisfied? No. So here the attribute value is Sunny. But what I have in the initial hypothesis is a 5. So it is not satisfied. So what I should do? Replace AI in H, AI in the hypothesis by the next more general constraint. Okay. So the next more general constraint is the value of this attribute. What is the value? It is Sunny. So let me replace this first 5 with the value Sunny. Similarly, the next value is warm. And here in the initial hypothesis, I have a 5, which is not matching. So I will replace this 5 with warm. Similarly, the next value, normal. The third 5 is replaced with normal. Then fourth 5 is replaced with warm. Fifth 5 is replaced with warm. And sixth 5 is replaced with same. So that is, it is replaced with all values of the attribute. So we just replaced it with the attribute values. So this is our hypothesis H1. So now let us move on to the next example. Since we are moving to the next one, I am naming it as H2. So now what I should do, I should take H1 into consideration. This is my latest hypothesis. Okay. So for each attribute constraint AI, the second example is also a positive one. So again, I'm going to this for loop. Okay, for each attribute. So what was the first attribute here? It is Sunny. In the hypothesis, what do I have? Here also I have Sunny. So both are matching. So I write it as it is, do nothing. If the constraint AI is satisfied by X, then do nothing. So I am just writing the value as it is Sunny. The next value. So here in the example, I have it mom. Here also I have mom. So I'll just write it as it is. Next, in the example, I have the attribute value as high. But in the hypothesis, what do we have? Normal. Okay, it is not matching. Attribute constraint AI is not satisfied. So then what I should do? Replace AI in H by the next more general constraint. So in the hypothesis, I have a value normal. So that should be replaced with the latest value, that is high. So normal is replaced with high. Then in the hypothesis, I have strong. Here in the example also I have strong. So do nothing. Just leave it as it is. Then in the hypothesis, I have warm. In the example also, I have warm. So do nothing. Just write it as it is. Then in the example, I have same. Here also, I have same. So here, if you observe the value high, it is just little specific. But what I should do, I should make it more general. Okay. So 5 is most specific. Then little general is high, but I should do it more general. So that means this value high should be replaced with the question mark. So that means this question mark will accept both the values. It will accept the value normal as well as it will accept the value high. So the precedence is like this. The most specific value is 5. Then if you replace it with some specific value, so then this is the next general and the most general is a question mark. So this is the hierarchy that we follow. Okay. So if I take one specific value, only for that value, this hypothesis will be satisfied. But when I'm moving from one hypothesis to the other example, two values need to be satisfied. So what I should do, I should make it more general such that both the values are accepted. So I'm replacing it with a question mark. So now let us move on to the third example. The third example is a negative one. So I can't do anything. So I just write the hypothesis as it is. So when I move on to example 3, here also there is no change in the hypothesis that I have. So I'm writing it as it is. H3 is sunny, warm, question mark, strong, warm and sing. This it is same as H2. H3 and H2 are the same. So now let us move on to the next example, that is X4. We are moving to example X4. So I'm naming this hypothesis as H4. So now let us once again compare the attribute value with the hypothesis value. Okay. So in the hypothesis, the first value we have is for the first attribute, the value we have is sunny. In the example also we have sunny matching. So take it as it is. The next value is warm. And in the example also I have warm. So we will take it as it is. Next is a question mark. So whatever might be the value that I have in the example. So here I have high, accepted. If I have normal, that is also accepted by question mark because it is more general. So I leave it as it is with a question mark. Then the next attribute value is strong. Here also in the example I have strong. So leave it as it is. Then the next value is warm. Here in the example, I have cool. There is a change. Okay, so the attribute values are not the same. So what I should do, in order to make both of these values acceptable, I should make it more general. So replace it with a question mark. Then in the hypothesis, the sixth attribute value is same. Here I have change. So now this is a positive one. So my hypothesis should also give me a positive result. So I should replace it with more general. So replace it with a question. Okay. So this is the final result because we completed with all the examples. So this is the final hypothesis that we have obtained. Finally, the hypothesis that we have obtained is sunny, warm, question mark, strong, question mark, question mark. So this is our final hypothesis. So now what are we supposed to do? In the third step, output the hypothesis fetch. So whatever hypothesis we obtained just now, that we have to output. So this is how the finders algorithm is going to work. So we have seen a step-by-step tracing of the algorithm. Hope you followed. If you have any queries, please do post in the chat box. Thank you.